Long ago, we realized, we being the young filmmakers that I used to hang around with, that sound was your special friend. And because sound does at least 50% of the job sharing with picture, but sound was infinitely cheaper than picture. So we decided in the early days of our beginning to have a studio that we would put a big effort in the sound capability of the films. And in fact, that began to be known as the San Francisco approach because we owned our own mixing facilities and we were able to have control of sound. And by doing that, we were able to give our films a tremendous amount of production value. People might not have known where it was coming from, but it was coming from the soundtrack. This is a personal facility that I have here in Napa because it's right here on the Inglenook estate, and it's really not available to anyone else. Of course, it is available to my children, and my daughter Sofia Coppola has mixed all of her films here with Richard Beggs as her sound designer and mixer. And of course, I've worked with Walter Murch and Pete Horner on any number of my films, and they all like to be here because there's plenty of wine and it's beautiful, but I think the quality of the work they get and the sound that they are hearing is first rate. Well, I do feel, as with many areas in technology, that engineering and sound seems to be going through a golden age in the last few years, and much has been uncovered in making sound systems more efficient. I think in the case of Myers Sound, there's a tremendous increase in power, and yet with distortion eliminated. I call it tight and clear. If it were a picture, it would be how incredibly focused it is. That's my experience in terms of the sound. It's very focused. It doesn't have a lot of blur or distortion, and yet it has power, but power often brings with it distortion. This is power without distortion. In the early days, the sound mix was done in huge theaters in Los Angeles, in huge halls, large halls, which pretty much was a duplicate of what the theater experience was. We discovered in San Francisco that even though we may have had much smaller space to work in, although very high quality sound, very high quality equipment, very high quality speakers, that we could create a relationship between the soundtrack as we were experiencing it in the small space and what it sounded like in the large theater space. We had to rent them for a very high per hour fee, and of course we were able to afford 6 or 7, usually an hour a reel is what we used to mix a film in, and we wanted to spend, a day a reel and later a week a reel. So that ability to have our own facility, and albeit in a much smaller space, we felt confident that we knew we were getting the soundtrack that would translate in the bigger theater space. We used to sit around and dream about what the cinema of the future was going to be like in terms of technology, and that we knew 35 years ago it would become electronic. And I would have to say at this age that the art form is at a certain place and you almost have to be diseased in order to be able to break it down and make a new one. And so to me it's more in the writing and artistic conception on what a film can be that's next ready for a revolution, because the technology can pretty much now do anything you ask of it.